Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about building community through our parks. And I am so glad to have with me Miss Erika Buri, who is Executive Director of Outdoor Sylvania. She is a collaborative community first leader with 20 years dedicated experience and service to the Outdoor Sylvania Community Parks in Sylvania, Ohio, where she has actually served as Executive Director since 2014. She holds a Bachelor of Science from Marquette University, previously served as the district's conservation manager, and has held park leadership roles since 2005. Throughout her tenure, she has spearheaded major capital projects, secured vital state grants, and expanded regional partnerships across Northwest Ohio. Her current focus centers on driving data-backed growth through Outdoor Sylvania's record-setting community survey, giving local residents a direct voice in shaping future park developments. Recognized for regional impact, Erika was named the 2026 Business Leader of the Year by the Sylvania Area Chamber of Commerce and has guided the district for 3 regional awards this year. And so I can't say without further ado and how glad I am to have her on the show. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you so much, Shanda. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. So I'm very familiar with the park system, and I can say that I have participated, been in, walked in, rode in, been through the parks, and they are fantastic.
Oh, I appreciate that. So I always love it when people say that to me because I work in a park, but so it's sometimes hard to see how awesome it is when you go to work there every day.
I think, it's funny when you say work, it's hard to believe. I'm like, what a great job to be a leader like that.
Yeah, it is. I think I always talk about how, when you are exposed to nature on a regular basis, it just immediately looking even at a picture of trees can lower your heart rate. So I must have a tremendous ability to handle stress because every day I get to look at nature out my window. So that's what I tell myself.
Excellent. I do think about organizations who take advantage of their parks. I mean, really think about it and are utilizing it to help them even recruit talent to their organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads me to my one major question here to start us is, what broader role do you believe that the parks play in creating a strong community?
So there's lots of, at least I know about a lot of science and writing about the value of nature to people, both mentally and physically. So having parks in your community means that you're going to have a healthier community physically because they have places to go recreate and walk. You're going to have a healthier community mentally because parks provide a lot of mental benefits to folks. And it's just a place people go to hang out together and spend time with families or friends. And so just having a place to do that also adds tremendous value to your community. And so those are kind of the big things that people think about. Oh, green space is great for people to have in their neighborhood. And it also, it increases home values and provides with places that they come to love, right? I hear a lot from folks who spent their childhood going to Olander Park or went to Fossil Park in 6th grade, and it's their favorite field trip. And so making those memories is also really important to having community, right? Because then you have common threads when you can meet someone and talk about the things that you have in common. Parks are one of those things. But also from an economic standpoint, which I think people don't really realize, parks in general are huge economic drivers for communities where people are coming in to the park. I think Olander Park is our oldest and busiest park. So I can just give that as an example. If you're having an event at Olander Park, you're probably having a graduation or a wedding. Your guests have to stay at a hotel. You probably forgot to buy enough ice. So you got to run down to Speedway and grab ice. And the bridesmaid needs a new pair of nylons because hers got a hole in the, just all those things. And the family has to get dinner before they go back to the hotel because it's the night before. People come in and stay and they eat and they hang out and they spend money. And so that is another way that we serve the community in terms of as an economic driver is we provide opportunities for people to come as tourists and then spend money in other places because we don't have a restaurant and we don't have, concessions. So that's available just down the street if you need it.
I think that says a lot about the fact that you are a great neighbor
Yeah.
for businesses. I
Right.
mean, what you're saying here is, again, we don't host that, but you all do, and they're going to benefit from driving that. There are whole communities, cities that tourism is all that they have, and this is what they do.
Yep.
And when you have a great park system like you do and led well, that really makes a difference in those businesses who can do businesses.
That's right.
I was thinking to myself too, I know very large employers who, when they talk about this is a great place to live because they want people to come into the area, they're going to be talking about what? Schools. They're going to be talking about where their homes are. But they do talk about their parks, like great places that you can take your children.
Yeah. And I think, we have a generation of workers coming into our spaces who have families and want to have those park spaces and see how valuable it is to have one in their neighborhood or, within a very short drive so they can take their kids and have them run around and explore. And when you have a community, and I've had this conversation with folks in the community who are working on how can we draw more people? Like, well, parks are a great advertisement. We have trails that connect the parks for folks who are runners or walkers, or even if you're just trying to get your, dog out for a stroll. Parks are great for that. So when people are now when they're moving for a job, they're not just looking for, well, I'm just going to be there for that job. I feel like folks have a much better idea of what balance looks like, even if we don't always, we don't always achieve it. We might know what we should be doing. We don't always achieve that. But parks and ability to be outdoors is a huge part of that balance for a lot of folks.
Mm-hmm. I know that you've done a great job of also asking those in the community for their input. And you just got through having questions placed out there, especially everything can be improved. I always say this, everything has an ounce of having an opportunity to improve. Nothing is perfect.
Right.
But what are you hoping for to learn through that survey?
So we've done a couple of surveys over the past 15, 20 years. And part of why we find that an important exercise is because our funds are mostly tax-based. And so we really need to know what our residents are looking for from us so that we can provide them with what they're looking for so they continue to support us. And that also helps us shape our strategic plans. And so we just wrapped up our second strategic plan and we're sort of working on, this is part of the process of working on our third one to have this survey out right now. Our last survey was great. It talked a lot about, what kind of things would you like to see us do? Most people were really excited about clean parks. Everybody wants, well-maintained parks. And that's important because they're not going to be valuable to your community if they're broken down or looking bad. Mm-hmm. And trails. Those were the two big ones. And they really valued the fact that we were a conservation organization. So some of what we do is acquire land and either it's already in good shape from a natural habitat standpoint or we created some natural habitat. As someone whose background is natural history, that was sort of nice to hear that people were like, oh no, we like the nature too. Because sometimes they're very focused on activities, right? How are we going to use this space? But yeah, so surveying is really important to kind of get a feel from the community on what we're doing, if we're doing it like they want us to, and how we can make changes going into the future. Every time we do a strategic plan, we launch a survey just so we can make sure we're headed that direction.
And this is really a lesson beyond just the parks, especially for large organizations who are saying, I've got a product out there, I have a service that I'm providing, a program. I can't stress enough how important it is to take a moment, ask your clients, ask your customers, what is it? So that really drives them to want to even come into the parks, come in to use a service, a program.
Right.
And so I think you're paving the way as a leader also too, is getting the feedback and incorporating it into a strategic plan.
Yeah, I really think that you can't be successful without a community. And part of that is learning what your community wants and helping them have that. Because otherwise you don't really serve a purpose. I don't think. So,
Or it's an agenda that's not actually that's warranting to the mission or purpose of the
and I think even as
organization.
a private like, if you're a business owner, if you don't have a product that nobody really cares about, you're not gonna you're not gonna do very well.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah.
That's a great one. So let's talk about the nugget that's in there that talk about building trust, because that's one thing you do with your community,
Right.
because you're asking the question, which helps that. But when you're doing that, how do you maintain that trust
Mm.
when you've got it? Now that people say, well, I love my park, but you ask them, well, why do you love it? How do you build that trust with the community?
I think it's funny that you asked that because I think a lot of people would just be like, "Well, I don't know. I just like it." That would be a lot of the answer, but a lot of what we do to build trust with community is transparency and communication. So, as a public entity, all of our books are public record. We've got nothing to hide. I always tell folks, "Hey, come look at my budget. I'm really proud of it." We do amazing things with just a little bit of money. But also, we do a lot of communicating. So, making sure people know what's going on in the parks, not just program wise, but what projects are coming up, what changes are going on, because then it's no big surprise when, especially our neighborhood park, like Olander Park, has a bunch of houses right around it. And so, if there's a crane that's coming in to take a tree down, and those neighbors are going, what's going on over there? So
Yes.
just communicating what's going on, not just from a programming event standpoint, but also from maintenance standpoint, so people have an idea of what's going on, so they don't feel like they're out of the loop and they like to be informed.
They'd like to be informed. I think you might have answered my next question in a great way.
Yeah.
But that balance with what people say they want,
Yeah.
with considerations with such as their budget, staffing, feasibility, and a long-term strategy.
Sure.
Can you talk to me how you do that balancing act with that?
With all those, I try not to cry at my desk. No. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how my background is natural resources management. I didn't take a business class in school. I had to figure all of this out on my own. And there was, very little help because I was in a weird space when I became the director, because I was the youngest in the region. I was the only woman in the region that was a park director. And so while folks were willing to offer help, I had some pride that maybe got in the way a little bit about asking for help. And I learned really fast that the more questions you ask, the easier it is to figure out what you need to do when you don't know what the heck you're doing. So anyway, part of that process of, managing a budget, but also making sure we're fitting community needs, is asking all the questions, asking questions from residents, asking questions from staff, getting advice from people that you admire and know that are doing it really well in other organizations. And that's the bigger network you can build in that department, the better. I always actually just had that conversation with my daughter. She's 11. She's in 6th grade. And she's like, I don't want to go talk to my teachers. I'm like, yeah, but this is the beginning of building relationships and learning how to do that. And I didn't think it was important when I was your age or even in college, but the more I've been in the world and understood how much having those connections can help, right? And how willing people are to help. That's the other thing. I think I didn't really realize at first how people want to help. They're more than happy to give you resources or to make suggestions. So I think that's one thing when I talk to young folks about going out into the world, don't be afraid to ask. Because even though you think, I think I was always kind of stymied by looking stupid, right? You're not going to look stupid. People are going to be more than happy to help you.
And you will get on the other side of that. You've got now decades of experience, and you think about where you started and where you are now.
Yeah.
It's a world of difference.
And now I'm helping other people out. It's awesome to be able oh yeah, I know how to do that now. I had to figure it out. So,
well, as a leader, you give back, and I can see you with mentoring others. So
yeah,
that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, now is my fun question.
Okay.
Although these are all fun questions.
They were all great questions.
Oh, thank you. What are you reading? What are you watching? Because I see you, I've got you visualized in the park.
Yeah.
But I'm like, is she reading a book? Is she watching?
So I don't watch a lot of television, and there's a long story behind that I'm not really going to go into. But my husband recently self-diagnosed himself as ADHD, right?
Oh.
So I don't know, Facebook throws these memes in your direction and he's like, "Oh, wow, they kept popping Facebook, the algorithm must have been like spot on." So he's like, "Oh, that sounds like me. Oh, that sounds like me." Oh, so he started doing some research and he's like, "Yeah, that's
Oh.
okay." So I'm actually reading a book about the ADA effect on marriage, right?
Oh.
Because one of the challenges as a woman, right, who with a child, I think a lot of women in general carry the mental load. That's just what happens. And so communicating that in a way that doesn't feel like nagging or like, I'm just being annoying has been a challenge. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that better.
Okay.
Right. As my daughter gets older, she's better able to handle her stuff. But also, like, a relationship is work and there's always room for improvement. So figuring out how we can work together better as a team has been a big thing this spring. So I've been reading that book.
That's awesome.
And also some fun, fiction.
Fun
Yeah.
fiction.
Yeah.
I think that it is so important to have the time to get a chance to read something that's not in your area,
Yeah.
but in your situation, it's benefiting your whole family.
Right.
It sounds like from learning from the book
Yeah.
and then having some fun. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Yeah.
It's amazing how fast the time goes.
I know that was really fast.
Yeah.
You said it would be. You warned me.
It's fast. It's fast. But you're it's interesting. We were talking about a subject area that is fast and people talk about parks, and I think
Yeah.
you're right. Sometimes they can't nail exactly why they love their parks,
Right.
but they do. And I also think that's a good sign of leadership because you just go in and you enjoy yourself. So it's not
Yeah.
just one thing that points out. It's really a number of things.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. And
It's never boring.
no,
There's
no.
always things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the experiences. And so what I think is also great as you as a leader is really you're helping build forever memories for families and for those that enjoy the park. So
That's really one of my favorite parts of it, yeah.
Aw.
Is, and I miss, like, being there and how doing the things, but also just making the spaces better
Mhm.
is just I just remind myself that I am making sure that the spaces exist and that they just get better so that more better memories can exist and happen.
What a humble way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you to our listeners who are catching the show and sharing it. We appreciate you. If you have any feedback, you can send it to info@mazeassociatesltd.com. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to the M&A Culture Building Institute, a nonprofit organization committed to bridging cultural divides through education, programming, and shared experiences. Check them out at www.culturebuilding.org. And thank you to our sponsor, financial advisor Donna Bogan at Hartman Bogan Financial Planning. And of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Maze & Associates Ltd., creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.